What's up, guys? Ryan Gray back with another YouTube video here on my channel, premed.tv. If you aren't a subscriber yet, please hit that bell to be notified of new videos after you hit that subscribe button. Today, I want to talk about my journey to medicine. Now, a lot of people ask me all the time, like, why did you become a doctor? And I've talked about it before on my Pre-Med Years podcast. If you haven't listened to that, I highly encourage you to do so. If you like these videos, which most of you do, I think, then go and listen to those YouTube, or go and listen to those podcasts, rather, at premedyears.com. You can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We'll have links to all of those in the description below. So today I want to talk about my journey to medicine and actually tell you that I initially didn't want to be a doctor. Shocker, right? Nobody comes out of the womb wanting to be a doctor. I was actually reviewing a personal statement last night, and the student wrote in there, now I didn't want to be a doctor from when I was an infant. I'm like, obviously, nobody does, right? I initially wanted to be a baseball player. I grew up in Southern California, Redondo Beach, and I played baseball, right? Southern California, sunny all the time. Baseball is culture there, and I loved playing baseball. Dreamed of one day becoming a professional baseball player. And I was really good, pretty good, initially when I was younger. I was actually drafted. They had a draft when you moved up from like the small base paths to the big base paths. And I was actually drafted first in that draft. So I was pretty decent as a young kid. And then I moved to Florida from Southern California, right? Moved across the country and lost my swing and continued to play baseball. And then I hurt my shoulder. And after I hurt my shoulder, I went to a physical therapist. I went to an athletic trainer to try to get my shoulder back to where it was so I could throw a baseball again. And it was at that moment where I was like, hey, this is kind of cool. Instead of being a baseball player, I can help other people with their sport, help other people live their dream of being a professional athlete or a weekend warrior, what have you. And that was my first foray into healthcare, was I want to be a physical therapist. That was my initial goal. Now, I didn't come from parents who were doctors, anyone in healthcare. I was a first generation, for the most part, college student. And so I was trying to figure all of this out on my own. And it wasn't until senior year of high school that I dissected a cat. Now, I had already been shadowing a physical therapist, seeing what that world was like, and then I dissected a cat, Mr. Bigglesworth. And it's funny, my yearbook, I was looking at it recently because I knew in my yearbook people referred to me as Catman because I loved Mr. Bigglesworth. Well, I loved cutting him more than anything. I loved opening him up and seeing what was inside, seeing how it was all fit together, right? I've always enjoyed taking things apart, putting them together. I've always loved playing with Lego and so much more. And so Mr. Bigglesworth, when I was combining my kind of budding passion for physical therapy and rehab and learning how to help people get back to where they were going with now cutting and dissecting and anatomy, I had a change of heart, right? Now I wanted to cut people and put them back together. And that was where I first wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. I knew from that day on that I wanted to combine my love of sports, my love of helping people get back to where they were, with cutting things and putting them back together. And I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Went off to the University of Florida wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon, went to medical school wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon. I went down that whole path, applied for residency, wanting to be an orthopedic surgeon. And that's where my path kind of diverges a little bit. If you know a little bit about me, I'm not an orthopedic surgeon. Now, in a future video in the next week or two, I will have a video about HPSP, which is the Health Professions Scholarship Program that I took for the Air Force, or from the Air Force, to pay for medical school. And it was really that scholarship program and the way that matching works to get a residency that kind of changed the whole trajectory of my career. So I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon from day one. That's why I went to medical school. That's why I was pre-med in college as an exercise physiology major. And so ultimately, right, my path to medicine is a very common one. I was injured. I got involved and exposed to healthcare, I figured out it wasn't enough. Through physical therapy, I wanted more. I wanted to cut things. I wanted to be in an operating room. And so I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon. Now, a lot of you will have very similar paths. And a lot of you will also avoid talking about those paths or that path because you think it's cliche. My story is not cliche. It's common. It's very common, but it's not cliche because it's my story. And so I wanted to tell you my story to understand that your story is unique to you. And you need to own your story. You need to accept your story. You can't hide from your story. As you were talking about your story in your interviews, as you were writing about it in your personal statement and in your secondary essays, you need to own your story. Now, for me, if I had all the information available today and I would go online, which I didn't do back then because the internet was still relatively new back then, if I went online now and I said, what are common personal statements? Or I look at my personal statement book and I go, oh, these are very common personal statements, very common stories. I'm gonna do something completely different. When you do that, it's usually a train wreck. Don't do something completely different because you will derail your application. Tell your story as to why you wanted to be a doctor. Tell your story as to how you got into healthcare. So I wanted to give you my path to medicine and help you explain your path to medicine. My path, again, not being cliche, but common. Now, ultimately, again, I didn't become an orthopedic surgeon. I became a flight surgeon in the Air Force, which is not a surgeon. It's just a really cool name. I'm like a family practice doc for pilots. But here I am, many years later, helping you on your journey. So no regrets from my side. I hope you don't have any regrets on your journey. And I hope you have the best luck applying to medical school and getting into the specialty of your choice in the future.